It's the Jim and Terry Show, coming to you from the Hobbit Hole Studio in downtown Bobcaygeon. I'm your host, Terry, and in a moment, Jim will be stepping in the studio for a breakfast meal together with fresh prepared coffee, and I'm thinking it'll be a pancake day. Pancake Thursday, Shrove Tuesday. That's coming up. This is what, January? If you're into the church calendar, the church year. Pancake Tuesday, is that after or before? Those of you who are into those kinds of things, after or before Easter? I think it's before Lent, but I'm not sure. Gone are the days when I tracked these kinds of things with any kind of religious fervor. I'm going to start off with a little clip. I mentioned that January 20th, the Inauguration Day, is a day that we need to examine the buyer beware of life, especially if you're in the U.S.
The Emptor, let the buyer be aware. The Emptor, beware.
Okay, that's a little excerpt, not the whole song. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. Check it out like you should have. Lyrics by Keith Allen. And although he likes to portray his lyrics in ways that are open to interpretation, I like to nail it down and say, oh, it fits this situation. Caveat emptor. Perhaps another way of saying it is, I told you so. And it's not just me, but everybody who said, buyer beware, Trump is a crook, Trump's a criminal, Trump's a felon, Trump's an adjudicated racist. And the first president to be elected as a felon. What is going on in the United States? And there he is, taking the Pledge of Allegiance to the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution, and they just pardoned all the J6. What's going on? Caveat emptor. Well, I just thought I'd start off with maybe a notion that the internet made Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Well, this is from Zateo. I don't know whether you follow Mehdi Hassan. I do on most things outside of the Middle East, where I think he's got it a little too close to his religious beliefs and convictions, and so it's kind of skews the way he's interpreting things. But I do follow him anyway. His take on American politics I find particularly insightful. Zateo, Z-E-T-E-O, is his independent media. Now that he is off MSNBC, and it's talking about, strange enough, a lot of things that my good friend Jim would like to hear, starting off in his article on Zateo this week. I think it was published January 21st, so here we go. And it's by, the author is not Mehdi Hassan, it's Will Stansel, but it is published on Zateo. So it begins with, and this is what I think Jim would like to hear, explicitly referring to President Dwight D. Eisenhower's warning 65 years ago of a military-industrial complex. Biden pointed out that the new tech-industrial complex is one that threatens the United States. Now, Biden made that in his farewell speech. Americans, this is a quote from Biden's exit speech, Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling what is, stick with a script here, enabling the abuse of power, unquote. And that is where we need to start with caveat emptor, buyer beware. We knew it was coming. But who exactly is responsible for the misinformation and disinformation? I went to look at some YouTube clips from a guy who I drop in once in a while. He does on-the-spot interviews, like many of the comedians who do on-the-spot interviews with MAGA gathering. So who's in Washington? Even though the outside was canceled, there were still people walking around the streets that you could talk to, and people who were getting tickets to whatever inside seats were available. And the interview just confirms exactly what you say when you say buyer beware. These are people who either have not studied history, do not know civics, do not understand the Constitution of the United States, or if you're in Canada, the Canadian Bill of Rights. So we need to, the Constitution Act, I think is what it's called in Canada. So here we go when we talk about who then is responsible for creating this massive disinformation. In Canada, it would be the F. Trudeau crowd and what they believe. The Joe Rogan who says, F. Trudeau, he's making Canada communist and really a dictatorship, really. So many things that people don't understand about division of powers, federalism, provincial powers, how money is raised, how money is spent, taxation policies, who's responsible for what. The big ticket items in Canada are provincial, healthcare, and education. So where's the money going, Mr. Ford in Ontario? Where's the money going, Daniel Smith in Alberta? Where's the money going? Scott Moe in Saskatchewan. Where's the money going? PEI Premier, also a conservative. When we complain and grumble about things being broken, it's the provinces who hold most of the power and the power of the purse. And federal transfer payments, in my opinion, need to come with strings. Spend the money the way we tell you to on healthcare, open up the ERs, don't close hospitals, hire more doctors, nurses, and medical staff, that kind of stuff. So caveat emptor, going back to the United States, geez, for a minute I almost had what do they call it, a brain fart? No, I'm going to sip my coffee. All right. Caveat emptor in the United States, Project 2025. If you haven't read it, it's still on the internet, but strangely enough, a lot of things are disappearing from the White House website. You'll get a 404 error code when you go to look up some things because they are no longer part of what the White House messengers want to communicate to the public. In fact, what public communication there is may be greatly limited. You won't get access to information, and that's from the people who said we need freedom to say what we want to say. Well, you're not going to get it, I don't think. Time will tell, and I don't want to sound the alarm too much, but one show that I listened to this morning that I follow, True North Eager Beaver, Mr. Grizzly is his character role in that program, was quite adamant that Gilead has arrived, and that is a bad situation, reference to Margaret Atwood in that phrase. Yeah, we're in the problem times of breeders. That's the role of women. So from women's lib from the 60s and 70s and all the progress, maybe not quite as far as getting rid of the glass ceiling. There are still some jobs, and Trump labeled them. Remember when he said immigrants are taking black jobs? What are those? Well, anytime you prevent anybody from getting what a meritocracy might award, which is on the value of your education and or labor, then you're getting in the way of something that could be good. People rising to stations and jobs that they would exercise some great contribution to the whole of society. But meritocracy, though it sounds fun, has to come with opportunity equality. DEI exists for a reason, because not everyone, especially those in poverty, those in addiction, those who have less fortunate circumstances, through no fault of their own, were born into a family context that is not supportive, that is not conducive, that does not promote health and wellness, does not promote education, does not support extracurricular activities, does not, well, the list goes on and on. DEI, or as the Pete Hegseth nomination is now made famous, the DUI nomination. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the United States, and we have to be aware that misinformation is at the root of all this stuff. So getting back to the Dollemore podcast where they interview the MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, it doesn't matter what you say, and that is the problem. There is no place to use logic and evidence where people have chosen to believe without evidence the things that they are talking about. And that is the rub. You cannot make sense with people who have embraced nonsense. That's the long and short of it. And how do you remedy the situation? Well, when you see all the seats at the Trump administration being occupied by rich billionaires, that is evidence of misinformation, convincing people that it's okay, that it's good, that it'll work out well, that we got the best people in the jobs. There's no doubt that Musk is good at getting companies going. Perhaps his acumen is tuned to business and expansion and growth, but, you know, he's non-labor, non-union in all his shops. So I'm wondering whether he has the best interest of people at heart. And we'll get into it with Jim later on, so I just want to touch base on some of this stuff. It's kind of interesting that we find Zuckerberg, we find Musk. Those are media moguls. Twitter and Facebook. Facebook removing, fact-checking. How can you have freedom if you don't have truth that we all agree? Truth will set you free, so they say, but in the age of disinformation and misinformation, in the days of X and Facebook news groups, you don't have any checks. Be careful in this wild, wild west of the Trump 2.0 administration. Caveat emptor. Absolutely. Buyer beware. You got it. Let's see where it's going to take you. Watching safely from north of the border. Or is it so safe? 51st or bust? Maybe. Bye-bye for now.